That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the debut pilot episode, actually, of The Lot Walk, where we talk all things automotive and then some. My name is Chaz Kelly. I'm the Vice President of Sales for Car Motivators and the host of this podcast. And we're just excited to have you guys here as we embark on this journey together to uncover all the secrets and missing pieces of the car industry. And today we have a very special guest virtually walking the lot with us. He's a successful general manager and leader in the luxury automotive world, Mr. Eric Hedges. Eric, how are you?
Great, Chaz. How you doing today?
Man, I'm doing excellent. How are things down in Huntsville?
That's a pretty day. Weather's great. It's Alabama though, so if you don't like the weather, wait, it'll change.
That's right. You'll have your 3 p.m. shower eventually, right?
Yeah, like yesterday it flooded. Who knew? Today is like 85 degrees and beautiful.
Yeah, and I'm not far from you, so it's a beautiful day in Nashville as well. So I could share that sentiment with you. Well, so we got some stuff to dive into. I know you've got just an insane yet apparently incredibly accurate Carvana take that came to full fruition this year. Bonkers! I cannot wait to dive into that with you. But before we get there, I kind of for our our viewers and our listeners and anybody who watches the podcast. Take us down memory lane a little bit. How did you get your start in the automotive industry, and at one point, or what role were you in when it occurred to you that, this is going to be what I do?
It has. Well, I didn't start life wanting to be a car salesperson. I just didn't. I went in the military, did 4 years of in the Army, 75th Third, and then came out, went to college for 4 years at Ohio State. Got my degree in physical therapy and athletic science. Started my practice down in Naples, Florida, and really just it just wasn't what I wanted. So I moved back up to Birmingham, where my parents had retired. My dad was a 30-year Marine, and he had started in automotive sales at a small dealership in Pelham, Alabama. And I kind of laughed at it, thought it was kind of funny, and he showed me how much money he was making, and I man,
changed everything, didn't it?
Yeah, that's more I'm making. For a month, he's making it in a week. So I said, maybe there's something to this car business, and started on a Saturday at a credit union sale, selling cars for a Chevy store in 1993.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's awesome. You've been in the car industry ever since?
Almost 30 years.
Holy smokes! Well, first and foremost, I also come from a military family. In fact, I was actually in Annapolis just a couple weeks ago, celebrating my cousin who graduated from the United States Naval Academy. Awesome. And so, just wanted to tell you thank you for your service and all of your family members for their service. I went to Arlington National Cemetery while I was there because it was Memorial Day weekend, and you don't really put into perspective how special our military servicemen and women are until you go there and you see it for yourself, and especially on a weekend like Memorial Day weekend. So yeah, thank you, and all of your family and friends for your service.
It was my pleasure to serve my country, and I echo your sentiment. I thank those who are currently serving and aren't getting their due credit.
Yeah, absolutely. And so military, Ohio State, starting your own practice, not really working out, end up selling cars.
Right.
And now you're the general manager out in Audi dealership. Yep. So you work in the luxury automotive sector. I actually come from the luxury automotive sector as well. I worked for Mercedes-Benz for a while. And the one thing that I always took away from them was that workplace culture was absolutely everything. No matter what your sales numbers were, no matter how many ROs you're writing up in the service drive. And so I have to imagine that's probably pretty close to home for you as well, correct?
Yeah, I mean, as you can imagine, being raised by a Marine, 30 years, I'm pretty dress and very goal-oriented and attention to detail. And the culture of my team is very important to me because they're your front line. Whether it's your service writers, whether it's your salespeople, you've got to have the type of culture that's customer centric And we always want to do what's best for our customers, and customer satisfaction is paramount to us these days, and it always has been, but is now the center.
Absolutely, and that's incredible. Because automotive loyalty is kind of going out the window. You can see that trend kind of dipping down where if you have a customer these days that you thought was going to buy with you forever, they may flip flop on you on a dime. And
Yeah,
so the way that we treat our customers nowadays has been more integral than it's ever been. And that's really cool that you recognize that because as a GM, you kind of have to have your pulse on those things, right? So, what
we
is your
do.
expectation? What is your expectation for your team every day when they walk through the door, as it pertains to your workplace culture?
Well, first and foremost, when my team walk in the door, they know what's expected of them because they've planned their day the day before. And I'm
Oh,
always telling
that's
people, if you
great.
don't have your plan, you know, before you leave the dealership, then by the time you get here the next day, you're behind. So they know who they've got to contact. We know who our appointments are. We know all their customers that are coming to the service lane, so we can talk to them, chit chat, maybe find out if they want to look at the latest and greatest thing. So everybody is prepared for business at 9 o'clock. We meet at 9 o'clock every day. I have what I call a 5 minute touch with everybody, and then if I need to meet with people individually, I do that later.
And so you mentioned the 9 o'clock meeting. The 5 minute touch is kind of something that I just kind of took for myself for a minute here and kind of
Mhm.
attached to. How important is that for you to do that every day? Like, what are you getting out of your 5 minute touch every day for your sake of the business?
Well, it kind of gives me a 50,000 foot view of what's prepared for the day, with my managers and with my salespeople,
Hmm.
and with my customers. I mean, it
Wow.
tells me really quick, are we going to have a 3 car day, or are we going to have a 15 car day? And
Right,
I
because
do
if you
that
don't
with
do those
every
touch
department.
points, if you don't do
Yes,
those touch points, like you can have half of your sales team that's completely off the rocker for the day, and
true.
you end up kicking yourself. End up kicking yourself in the butt because you could have changed that from the beginning of the day. You could have at
Hmm.
least inspired some sort of change of whether it be whatever they're dealing with at home or something that's rocked them, a bad drive to work. You had an
Absolutely.
opportunity to inspire them to be a little bit different based on the circumstances they had walking in the door.
Yeah,
And
and you
so,
get used
how
to everybody's demeanor when they walk in, so you can kind of tell really quick. If somebody's shirt's untucked, they look a little disheveled. They've had probably a tough morning, and you can pick up on those cues to go back to later and visit on. But yeah, it's just being prepared. Is the biggest thing. Is ready to go to business the moment you hit the door.
Absolutely. So I love how you say, you could tell when somebody is disheveled, they've had a rough morning. Long
Mhm.
gone are the days of, the old car managers where if you walk in like that, you're just like, turn your butt around. You go back home. You're not ready.
Right,
Because we actually care about our teams, right? It's not
we do.
just about car sales. It's about retaining the employees that do really great work. And even the greatest of employees, the most rock stars of salespeople and managers, have terrible days. So
They
how do
do.
you, in your experience, what is the best course of action, especially when you see a Rockstar employee walking in already having a crappy day, right?
Mhm.
What is your favorite method of turning that around, or how do you address that personally?
Well, first off, you got to be accessible. If you were in the car business, like you said, Chaz, I never talk to this general manager at most of my stores when I sold cars. I still
Yeah, very
anticipate
very
nobody
few and
did.
far between. Very few and far between.
Yeah, so I just engage with them, you know, just just simple talk points. How are things going? How was your workout this morning? If they CrossFit, or if they, what did they do last night? What did they do on their day off? Just kind of just getting them to open up a little bit about what's going on. But this business, it's not for the faint of heart.
Mm-mm.
It's a difficult business, and these guys take it, very personal. They take their customers' happiness very personal, and it can wear on them. And basically, just chatting with them and finding how their day's been and what it was yesterday, and just getting to the bottom of it quickly, and just letting them know that whatever it is will soon change, and things will be back to normal.
You said a key word there that I actually just thought about, and as you were talking, I was going through my entire automotive history here. I was trying to attach accessibility to the GMs that I've worked for, and like
Hmm.
which ones that were accessible and which ones that weren't, and how successful was that particular dealership. And you're absolutely right. The accessibility of the general manager can directly dictate the success or the morale of your team. Because I've
Absolutely.
worked with GMs that have cut themselves off. I don't want to talk to anybody. If you need me, you go through somebody else.
Right.
And you feel like you're just kind of like falling in line with all the other numbers that are out there on the floor.
Right.
And then I've also worked with a GM before who like you say makes his rounds, does his touch points, brings kind of like the excitement and the happiness into the air every single
Hmm.
morning. And I still to this day, that dealership, I'm actually going to shout them out. It's Mercedes Benz of Baton Rouge, and the GM and GSM of that store, Nick Pentis and Hess Crockett. Those guys make a point to know every single one of their employees, their frontline staff, and excite them about the day every single day. And they troubleshoot every issue they have, no matter what it is. And to have that kind of professionalism, A, and B, care for your employees, it propels their salespeople like 100% higher than they would have ever done them by themselves.
Absolutely. I find it empowers them a lot, and it gets them to come and before problems become problems, and let you know what's going on, because they feel that sense of an open door policy, which we have here, which it's from the top down. I will say my dealer partner, Matt Meyer, is probably one of the only dealer partners and dealer principals I've ever worked with that anybody can come to him and talk to him at his door, and he'll take a minute
Wow.
to figure out what's going on. And he's on site at our our Mazda store.
That's awesome, man. That's
Yep.
awesome. Well, shout out to you guys for doing that, because that's just such huge. If you're a dealership out there that's wondering what the deal is with the staff, they're not talking to me. Here's an opportunity for you, right?
Yeah. Talk to him.
So yeah, talk to your people, right?
Right.
Absolutely. Get to know them. Get to know what motivates them. Get to know their why. Why are they
Yeah.
there in the first place, right? Their goals. And so, what? So let's get into this whole. Man, I love this because this whole thing kind of, yeah, as you know, we talked. This whole thing was kind of born out of a LinkedIn post, right?
Yeah.
One that you made years ago, and then
Yep.
one that you just made recently, and
Hmm.
that's what got my mind going. So I laugh about it because it's so crazy how accurate you were. Let's get to this whole self-service automotive business take. So the Carvanas and the Vrooms of the world.
Hmm.
Um, walk us
I
through
love
what you
them.
made. But yeah, walk us through your claim from a few years back, and kind of tell us what was said here. Okay.
Well, basically, everybody was jumping on board with the Carvanas and the Vrooms, and what a great concept. No more salespeople, none of this back and forth, back and forth. And you know what? For some people, it seemed like a really, really good idea for an idea for them to buy a car. And, and when it went public and it blew up the way it did, stocks went up to $350 a share and things of that nature.
Insane. Yeah.
It's insane. And I'm a trader, by day, and a kind of investor. And I was like, this is not going to last. This is, there's so much more involved than just somebody looking at a car and asking them to bring it to their house and deciding what a price is going to be. You know what I'm saying? Because there's a lot you can hide in photos, you know what I mean? In
Oh my
video and
gosh,
everything else.
unbelievable.
And
If you've bought anything from an auction before, you know for certain that
oh
there's a
my
lot you
God.
can hide in photos, right?
Absolutely. You're always
Yeah,
buying somebody else's problem. And that's what I said in 19. I said, it sounds like this is a either a company looking to become an auction, which has come to
right.
fruition because one of them has bought an auction, or it's the latest and greatest thing in the car business. And it's it became one. They're becoming like, what is it, Odessa they bought. But anyway,
Yeah.
nevertheless, people are disenchanted now by this process because they're getting vehicles that aren't what they thought they were.
Yeah, it
And
turns
I
out that some of
basically
those vehicles
said,
are awful, right?
yeah, and I basically said, this is going to crash and burn. And I said, I give it less than, I actually back then, I think I said I gave it less than 3 years. And when I found out their stocks had been shorted 51%, I was like, oh, this is really going to end badly, because you've got their peak of 365% up, and now you have their their quarterly earnings now that are just dismal. I don't know how they're going to
It,
make it.
and for all you viewers and listeners, like this is legit. Like he legitimately had a LinkedIn post from years ago that was just like, this is not long-term feasible.
Yeah,
And then just recently when Carvana had the absolute plummet, the most abysmal plummet in any business would want, right? And
yeah,
everybody started selling off, and he reiterated, "I saw this coming. I knew it was coming. I told you, a few years back, and now here we are." So it's just crazy how you saw the crash and burn that's been happening for the past year or so. You saw it long before anyone else did, or at least long before
hmm
anyone else was talking about it. Because people
yeah.
obviously felt the same way, but they weren't so sure as to verbalize it or speak it into existence, because they kind of, a lot of folks want to tread the water, right? They want to dip their toes in the shallow before they jump full into the deep end, right?
True.
So
Yeah. What if it would have succeeded? And I would have been the clown.
yeah, well, yeah, so you kind of have to take those takes, and you win some and you lose some, right? This one
Right.
you won big time. And so
Well,
but
yeah,
but
they're $3.3 billion in debt, and there's no way of getting out of it with negative cash flow. It doesn't work.
yeah, that obviously
But
that does not equate to good business.
Chaz, one of the biggest reasons I said this is because, like you said, we do buy cars from auctions, and you do get cars that you have to get ready for sale. And right now, my average cost to get a car ready for sale is $1,875.
Hmm,
It's a luxury dealership. I get it, but I couldn't imagine how they were paying such high prices for these cars. They were bidding everybody out,
right.
driving the market even higher. And then they still had to get these cars refurbished and put in order for a customer. It just didn't make sense.
Absolutely. So, this whole, and this has been my view, right? So this whole Carvana vroom thing, the self-service auto business,
Mhm.
you choose the car, you choose the financing, it's delivered to you, no salespeople needed, right? Whatever,
Mhm.
right? That business model always seemed like a great in theory, not so great in practice. And I've never bought a car from Carvana, mainly because I'm a purist. I like to go to the dealership and I like to actually interact with somebody and see the
Mhm.
dealership for what it is and know the service department I'm going to work with. But this obviously for a different person could have been a quote unquote dream come true, right? But in your opinion, because I have my opinion about this, but I want to hear what you have to say about this, because you're
All right.
GM, you have multiple employees, and so was removing the personal salesman factor kind of the knife in the heart that doomed them before they even started?
I think it did to a point because I think a lot of time, well, I always say a customer comes in and buys what they came in for 20% of the time, and 85 or 80% of the time they buy something totally different. Sometimes they have something in mind they think they want, but when they actually experience it, it just wasn't what they wanted. Um, and that's what happens in Carvana and Vroom is they don't get to experience the car because one reason or another they couldn't go to a dealer and look at one, and they didn't want to go to a dealer and look at one because they want a salesperson to help them. But then they find out, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't have heated seats, or hey,
Yeah,
it
it
doesn't
doesn't have navigation, doesn't have
have
heated seats.
navigation, it doesn't have blind spot, and that wasn't there wasn't somebody there to tell them it did have it or didn't have it. So it's nobody's fault. Well, kind of is somebody's fault, but they decided to take their consumer, decided to spend their money a different way, and that's fine. I'm
Yeah,
good with that. But I'm finding a lot of people coming and buying cars from us, and I'm talking to them every day that had a bad experience, and they want somebody to go over the car once. We offer second deliveries here because, quite frankly, our cars have a lot of technology,
yeah,
and you don't get that from a
absolutely.
Vroom or from a Carvana. Our customers come back and sit down, and we go over it again because after you negotiate on a deal and find out what your trade is, you go through finance, you're ready to go home, get something to eat, relax. It's an experience, but
And be happy, right? Because you
and
just
be
bought a new
happy you bought a
car.
brand new car. But it's like drinking from a fire hose, and you just can't get all the data that quickly. And I think that's where the
Yeah.
disconnect is. You don't have that person, that Audi brand specialist, that brand specialist to kind of bring it home.
Absolutely. And you hit the nail right on the head, because even working at Mercedes, when obviously about, I would probably say about 2011 to 12, we start getting this big tech boom in the cars, right?
Mhm.
And some of this technology gets to the point where you can't, like you say, you can't go over all of this in a single delivery and
Yeah.
maintain consistent deliveries on a daily basis. So, yeah. So, what did we end up doing? We hire product concierges that help teach our clients. We did classes on the weekends to
Mhm.
help teach about the new technology in these, in these cars. And once again, I'm right there with you. I felt like that was just such a missed opportunity. If you're ordering from Carvana or any of the self-serve kiosk or whatnot, I feel like there's a missed opportunity of A, you don't know really what you're getting into, and B, you don't even know if it's got the things that you want or not in
True.
built into the car. And if you're not reading the fine print, right, then when you get the car and it's not what you want, then it's shame on the consumer. And that's the worst place you want any of your clients to be, right?
No, you're
Is when
exactly
they feel
right.
guilty for themselves.
You're right. I wouldn't wish that for any of my clients. I mean, I'm not going to tell you we've never sold a car that didn't have all the options they
Oh,
were looking for,
yeah, it
because we have,
happens. Yeah.
but it's very rare. And if we do, we make it right. Carvana
Of
and
course.
Vroom's answer is you got so many days, and we'll come pick up the car. But what they don't tell you is you got to get something of equal or lesser or equal or more value. You know what I mean?
Right.
A lot of times, everybody thinks you can just give the car back and they'll come and get it. A lot.
I
It
remember
doesn't
my
happen.
wife and I, we had our hearts dead set on a certain SUV. And I
Hmm.
went to the dealership and I was like, we are getting this SUV. This is the one we want. I know it for a fact. Um, and they were like, "Well, do you want to test drive it? Do you want to look around?" And I was like, "Nope, I'm good." Right? I was almost doing this to myself, right? And they're like, "No, I insist." The salesperson was like, I insist you drive this car. I
Yeah.
insist you drive this SUV." And Eric, I am so happy that man said that because I got behind the wheel of that thing. I hated the way it drove. I
Hmm.
hated the way it drove. I hated the way it felt. It was a
Yep.
lot smaller than I thought it was going to be. And I can't imagine if I was a self-service kiosk customer ordering what, like I said, I'm walking in, I know exactly what I want. I'm ordering
Right.
in, I'm confident, and that thing shows up at my doorstep, and I get in it, and it's so underwhelming, it's almost disappointing.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and it's 100% yours at that point in time. Back in the day, before the last 2 years, you just lost 20%. Nowadays,
yeah,
it might not
absolutely.
cost you as much.
so moving on. So obviously, kudos to you, man, for calling that. And there's a lot to the reason I wanted to make that kind of like the central topic of our podcast day, because there's a lot to be learned from this. I really feel like there's a lot that the automotive industry and its consumers need to pick up from the pieces of this Carvana crash.
Mhm.
And so let's kind of go into that a little bit, right? So why is it, from a GM's perspective, why is it so important to have professional and well-educated sales teams to serve your customers? Like, what is driving that? Like, they're there, you hire them, right?
Mhm.
Why is it important to have the best of the best on your floor?
Well, I'm going to be partial. We sell the best product out there at Audi, and our cars, um, I believe, are a value for the technology and for what people get. And if you don't have a professional staff to educate the customer about the car, and B, listen to what they say to make sure they buy the right car, then you're not going to stay in business that long. And that's our guys are very good at listening. God gives you 2 ears, listen twice as much, right? And
Two and
finding
one,
out
right?
right, exactly, find out what they want and guide them. Be their I call it car counsel. Somebody who can counsel them on what to do, not a salesperson, but somebody who's going to be there for them today on the purchase. The person they call when they have questions. The person they call if they have service issues and they can't get a loaner. You know what I mean? Somebody, it's their person when somebody gets, hey, where'd you get your car? They say, oh, you got to go talk to XYZ because he's going to take good care of you. He's always taking great care of us. It's
Absolutely.
important because you only get one shot. I tell these guys, if you don't sell a customer the first time they're there, or they're not sold on you, you're not going to see them again.
Yeah,
So
never.
they've,
Yeah,
they've
they'll
got
never
to
come back.
be, they've got to make an impression that's a great impression on the customer, and that's all I put out. That's all I put out there in the world is this is why we love Audi. And we get a lot of people who come in here who love our cars that don't buy them. And I get it. They're not the cheapest, but they're not the most expensive either.
What would you say to consumers that still say or still have the stigma about the automotive industry of, oh, that person's a salesperson. They're just trying to make a couple extra bucks off of you.
I would say you're absolutely right. They're a salesperson. They are trying to make money to support their family. We're not trying to pay for our mortgage on one person. We feel that we are going to be profitable, and we'll make a little bit of profit on a large amount of people, and that's why we kind of are a volume Audi dealer. I mean, we sell 45, 50, 55 new Audis, even in this having trouble to get things because of semiconductors, and we sell 50, 60 used a month, and in Huntsville, that's pretty good. I mean, our market share is very strong, and we do very well against our competitors because we take care of our customers after the sale. I always tell them, I say, well, I welcome them to the family, because that's who they are to us. I mean, the sales part is a small part. It's the service after the sale that's
just the beginning. Yeah. And we'll get into kind of like your Huntsville story here in just a second. But I want to also reiterate, like, to all of our viewers and listeners out there that see this, like, salespeople are there to make money for themselves, to put food on the table for their families, but it's also their job to 100% take care of your every single need. It's not just about making money on a car deal. It's about making sure that you are having the time of your life while you're there. There are no snags in the process. Everything is, the accommodations that you guys, I'm sure, have are incredible for your clients.
They're very nice.
The sales, it's like there's so much that goes into a salesperson's day that's behind the scenes of you just showing up. Like, I always say this, right? For you to just show up, see the car, take it for a drive, say you want it, sign the papers, and deliver it. For that process to be that smooth, it took hours of time outside of you being there for that salesperson to prep for you to do that. And that's because those salespeople care about your well-being. They want to make sure that experience for you is 100% perfect, exactly what you needed and what you wanted out of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, my guys, what they don't see is when the deal is done. I mean, generally these kind of cars, they're sold. The rest of the process goes forward. A car, it goes through detail. It comes up. It gets on the showroom floor, and then the sales guy, what does he do? He rubs on it for another, 25, 30 minutes to make it perfect for the customer. And they don't even know that happens because, cleanup is cleanup. Cleanup is get it pretty close to clean, but detail is what your salesperson does to it. And that's what we do here. I mean, there isn't a car that's not cleaned up perfectly every time we deliver one. And I think our customers realize it, because if you bought something somewhere else, the windshield was, hazy or still had the suction cup marks from the factory.
The factory.
It's different. It's an experience.
You find a piece of foam somewhere,
right, or a part that didn't get taken out, or a tool. But we take pride in everything we do here, from the moment the car gets here to the moment they take delivery, and when they come back to us. We give them an Audi to drive during the day to take care of their Audi. So it's all the experience. Absolutely. Right up front and all the way through the lifetime of the ownership.
So like I said, talk to me about Huntsville. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about Huntsville in our phone call. But
Huntsville's great.
Your store, right? So Huntsville, you say, and according to all the news and world reports, right? Huntsville is a booming place in America right now.
It is. It's like the new Silicon Valley of the United States. I mean, we were voted the number one city to live in the country.
That's crazy. Of all places, too. It's like, it's so weird.
They let the secret out. Don't tell anybody.
Don't tell anyone. You have so many people. Well, maybe you get more customers, right? So that's kind of my question. So how is, all this love that Huntsville's getting? Because Nashville got that love. I live in Nashville. Nashville kind of got that love a few years ago, and it's still growing. But now it's kind of transitioned to Huntsville, Alabama, where, this is the new spot, right? So how is that translating, or how are you seeing it translate to higher numbers for your dealership over at Audi Huntsville?
Well, obviously it's the numbers game, right? More people. You've got, industry. You got your first Mazda plant, which we have a Mazda dealership here, the first Mazda
Mhm.
plant in the United States here in Huntsville,
That's
a joint
crazy.
venture
That's
with
awesome.
Toyota. You got NASA, which my wife works for NASA, but I mean, you got NASA, Raytheon,
What?
you got
That's so
all,
cool.
yeah, I mean, you've got Boeing, you got, let's see, Northrop Grumman, let's see, a couple other companies. You got missile defense, you got the big,
Hmm.
huge conglomerate of the FBI here now. So it's big business, big industry, and really smart engineers. I mean, we got some of the top engineers in the world in Huntsville, and it makes it
Not to
real interesting to
mention,
sell them cars.
I believe across and forgive me, my Huntsville knowledge is very, very small, but across the river from you guys in Decatur, I believe you guys have a massive GE plant there too. That's
Yeah.
building all of all of America's refrigerators and
Hmm.
appliances and stuff. So
Oh yeah, there's all kinds of industry coming
it's
here, and it's
booming.
just booming. It is, and we couldn't be happier. Um, the fact that we're so close to Nashville is probably one of the big reasons. And Nashville is one of our favorite cities. My wife and I to visit. We love Nashville, and we hope that we become a little less commercial and just as nice as Nashville, because Nashville is a beautiful place. And I think people, it's the cost of living here is reasonable. You
Yeah,
can buy a house still for $250,000, $300,000, and get a nice
unheard
house.
of here. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
right. Yeah, not what 5 years ago you could probably get a house in Nashville, maybe 8 years ago for that, but now it's a different market. So you got small families coming here. I mean, you got fresh outs from college coming here. We got UAH, which is one of the top engineering schools I think in the country. Uh,
Hmm.
so yeah, it's Huntsville is really growing, and now we are the largest city in Alabama, bigger than
Wow.
Birmingham.
Woo. I didn't know that. That tidbit for all you people out there who are populationists and anthropologists. Huntsville is now the
Yeah,
biggest city in Alabama. I learned a lot on this just hearing you talk, but that's a great takeaway. I'll have to recall that every time I have one of my Alabama friends that are also Alabama fans say Tuscaloosa's the number one city on the planet. It's like,
they
well,
do have
come
the
on.
Crimson Tide.
Number one in certain things, but population, not today, sir.
That's right.
So how outside? So obviously, it's a numbers game, right?
It is
So for your dealership's a numbers game. Huntsville's growing. If Huntsville grows, you guys obviously grow with it.
right.
Have you encountered any challenges or any strategic challenges with the numbers growing like that?
Uh, I tell you, our challenges, Chaz, is like everybody else's, is getting inventory.
Yeah.
As far as the population growing, that's not and that's not a problem for us. But what becomes a problem is when we can't deliver what
When you
our
don't have the
customers
cars.
want. Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
that's a little bit of an issue. I think it's an issue that after talking to out of America this past week is going to be rectified. I think we're going to see a huge boom in Q3, Q4 for Audi. I think just watch the market shares change for us because we're not fortunate enough to have plants in the United States like BMW and like right up
Mercedes
the
has
road in
one.
Vance
Yeah.
like Mercedes Benz. So
Hmm.
when we order a car, it takes us 4 months to 6 months to get one if it's not an Audi Sport and if it's not a special paint.
Constantly watching your tracker, right? On the water,
Yeah,
on the water, on the water.
yeah, on the water, and hopefully it doesn't sink. When we had 11 cars on that boat that sank out in the ocean, out in the Atlantic,
Oh my
off Portugal.
gosh, man. Yeah, I used to remember looking at the dealer trackers and stuff and saying when I saw received at VPC, I'd be like, "Oh, thank you."
Yeah,
It's like it made it
please be in
across.
one piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Well,
ran a Mercedes store for 7 years
nice. Where
early
at?
on in Birmingham.
Nice. Mercedes-Benz Birmingham.
Yeah, well, it was
That actually
Crown back in the day.
Crown the artist formerly known as Crown.
That's
Now
right.
is what Nick Saban's Mercedes. Yeah.
Yeah, which I think is a group out of Louisiana also is part owner of that.
Hey, guess who used to work for Dream Motor Group?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I wasn't
So
going to say anything.
I actually worked for Baton Rouge and I worked for Music City when they opened up here in Nashville.
Very
Um,
cool.
and got to meet Coach Saban a few times. He's a wonderful human being and a great
He
motivator.
sure is. You know,
Outside of what you
he
think of
will
him on the college football landscape, the
go
guy
Buckeyes.
knows how to motivate you. Yeah,
My,
but
my wife, my wife's a diehard Alabama fan. She's born and raised here in Huntsville.
wow. That's great, and so coming from a guy who obviously you see the LSU jersey back there,
Oh, I see it.
it's quite a stinger every year when November rolls around, and we're like, look at our previous coach just pounding us in the sand. Oh
Yeah,
man, well,
I
but
get
I
you,
have
baby.
immense respect for because Coach Saban, and not to get off on a tangent here, but Coach Saban has a process, and he
Mhm.
expects excellence out of everyone, and he expects the same exact discipline, whether it be from his senior leaders all the way down to the freshman who just moved into his dorm. And I don't mean I do actually, you know what, I do mean to correlate this to the automotive industry,
Mhm.
because we could really take a page out of that book. Whether it's a new salesperson or a seasoned salesperson, they get the same respect. They should get the same respect and treatment and love as being a part of your family that
Mhm.
anyone else does.
Absolutely. I mean, it goes
How
for the
else are you
guy
going to
who sells
retain
25
employees?
cars or the guy who sold 5 cars.
Right.
Absolutely. I mean, we
And
do the same thing here. Laser focus and a great culture.
yeah, that's why I love, I knew just having you hop on here, I knew it was going to be just a great talk. And I I feel like we have had a great talk. This has been
Agree.
eye opening on so many levels, and just being able to get your expertise on why you called it from a long time ago that the Carvana thing wasn't going to work, and B, where are we at now, and what can we learn from this. So one more thing. I know we've been on here for about 30-40 minutes, but we probably need to hop off. But I got one more thing for you, Eric, and this
Okay.
is just something that I feel like, especially you as a well seasoned, um, not just a well seasoned automotive manager and general manager, but somebody who didn't choose the car industry. The car industry kind of chose you, right?
Mhm.
And military background, what you're a motivated leader who wants the best for your team. I think there's no
Absolutely.
uh, you know, no way around that. You obviously want the best for your team every day you walk in the door. You've said that with your 5-minute touch points. So what are in your opinion, what are your top three must dos for automotive professionals to survive and thrive in the industry moving forward as it is?
Um, I think to survive and thrive in this business, you have to have balance. Um, I really didn't mention this, but when I started in the car business, I asked my manager what my schedule was, and he said it was on the front door. You know, 8 to 9. 8 in the morning, 9 o'clock. I mean, so there wasn't a whole lot of balance, but it gave me a lot of time to get good at my job. I think you got to have good balance. You have got to have a lot of care for your customer. You've got to know that you're going to give that customer the best experience ever, and by doing that, you have to be educated in the car. You have to be engaged. You've got to have a personality of servancy. You got to be able to take care of them. I mean, give you an example. When we were going through COVID, we adopted this program that was called Audi at Your Door, and we literally
Oh
took
wow.
every car to our new customers, or delivered every car to our new customers, touchless if they wanted to, and also with service, we would take a loaner, bring back their car and service it. I think you've got to have that heart of service, uh, and you've got to be in it as um, a career. Something that you're not. It's not the next leaping stone to something else. It's got to be something that this is what you want to do, and you bleed Audi red, and that's just what. And you eat it, you sleep it, you drink it, you take the phone call, you take the text, even if you're in the middle of things, you just do what needs to be done. However, with balance. And I think that's
Right.
what it takes. It's a commitment. It's a commitment to be here. It's a commitment to be engaged, and it's a commitment to, when you're not here, um, be in that moment wherever you're at with your family, but be accessible, because that goes a long way. These people are spending a lot of money. Everybody's spending a lot of money on cars
It's the
these days. I
second
don't
biggest
care.
it's the second biggest purchase in your household outside of
I
your
don't know.
household.
It doesn't matter what it is. A Kia, not that Kias are not great vehicles, but they're less expensive, but they're still expensive. So, I think what you're doing, with the podcast is great. I hope a lot of people listen to it. I hope you get a lot of good people on here because, one thing I've learned about the car business in 30 years is a lot of great people in the car business.
Absolutely. Oh my
There's a lot of
gosh, they're
people
all
who've
over
been
the
in.
place.
There's a lot of people who've been in the car business, but there's a lot of people still that are really good in the car business, and we
And
have people.
we meet them all the time. And honestly, and I thank you for that compliment. I really do appreciate that.
Yeah,
And thank you for coming on because you are the debut episode of what hopefully is a library of knowledge for
yeah.
anyone and everyone who wants to know anything about the automotive industry.
Well, I hope this
And
thing works for you. I really do. And I'll come back and talk again.
well, like so just to recap your things here, because I love this balance and structure, right?
Hmm.
100% servantship and care for your customer, and
Absolutely.
committing to the career. Like
Hmm.
this is not a hop, skip, and a jump. Like go all in, right? Don't,
Yep.
as my grandfather would say, don't half-ass a bunch of things, whole ass one thing.
That's right.
Oh man,
And be good at it.
it's and that's the only way you master things, right? And so,
That's right.
Eric, I appreciate your time. This has been incredible talk. You're right. There's so many wonderful human beings in the car industry that want nothing more than make their clients the happiest people on the planet. And it's not a doubt in
True.
my mind that you are one of those folks. I'd love nothing more than to do it again soon. Um,
We'll do a
and
lot walk again sometime.
yeah, that's right. Hey, before we go, I promised Sean I would plug this. So
Okay.
Sean Kelly is our CEO of Car Motivators, and for everybody listening out there, or watching out there, if you know anything about Sean Kelly, he's the car business coach. We coach Car Motivators. We coach uh, rooftops, West Coast, East Coast. I mean, I go all the way out to Sacramento and all the way to New Jersey, New York City, and
Hmm.
everywhere in between, even the small little rural towns in between that you don't think of, right? Everybody in the automotive industry needs coaching of some point because you can't get buff overnight. Well, he had contracted coronavirus in December and went down for the count, ended up getting COVID related pneumonia. He was gone out of the business for 3 months trying to survive. And in that 3 months where he was on his deathbed, recovering, and then doing the rehab to get back to good, he is now currently in Florida coaching a dealership down there. But I wanted to bring this up because it's special to him. If you guys have any idea what it's like to walk through a business owner's journey through COVID, I suggest you pick this up. This is a book called The Visitor. Put it up close for everybody. The Visitor. I actually designed that cover for him.
Nice.
The Visitor is a book. Is Sean Kelly's personal testament. It's my CEO, Sean Kelly's personal testament of his walk with coronavirus, and it literally is how a near-death COVID experience taught one man that faith, prayer, love, and charity were God's remedies to survive and thrive. And so it's already got several accolades. It became an Amazon bestseller last week. So if you guys wanted to pick this up, you want a good, easy read that motivates you to run through a brick wall, I highly suggest anybody listening or seeing this to pick up my CEO's book, The Visitor, because he went through a hell of a time trying to recover from that and maintain a business. And was the result of it. So wanted to plug that for him real quick before we got off. I feel like we've had an incredible talk today. I want to do it again soon, Eric.
Sure.
Yeah, walking the
Love
lot with me today, Eric Hedges, GM of Audi Huntsville, one of the most successful Audi dealerships in America.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. And I am Chaz. I have nothing to do with that. No, I'm Chaz, a VP of Car Motivators. This is The Lot Walk. We're signing off. We'll see you again very soon. Thanks for watching, listening, and tuning in. We'll talk soon.